Ask everyone to please be seated at this time. We're about to begin the services for Bianca Jerry Kohlenbrener. Want to welcome those of you that are here in the sanctuary this morning, as well as the people viewing the funeral from live stream. For those of you here in the sanctuary, just a gentle reminder, if you have a cell phone with you, to please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. Also, just a few brief announcements. The interment will take place at Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie. For those of you driving to the cemetery, we will make sure that we provide magnetic flags for your car, as well as a funeral sticker for the inside portion of your windshield. And use your bright headlights and your emergency flashers while in procession at all times. And then the Shiva will be observed at the Kerwin residence, 2927 Indianwood Road in Wilmette, today from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And all this information is listed in the service folder that you received when you came in. And for those of you viewing online, this information is available on our website. Officiating this morning is Rabbi Jacob Leisman from North Shore Congregation, Israel.
We remember Bianca Jerry Kohlenbrener and join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to one another as her family, friends, and community. I want to give my condolences to Jerry's immediate family, her children JoEllen and Laury, as well as Jim, and their children, Jerry's grandchildren, Yonah and Merav, Malka and Oded, Israel and Tamara, Danna and Moti, Raphael and Ilit, Avi and Neta, Nikki and Zach, Katie and Charles, Jeremy, Josh, and Brian, as well as their children, Jerry's great-grandchildren, which number 22. And I'll also want to give mention to those who are a big part of Jerry's life who are no longer with us, Bob and Paul, Shraga and Baruch. Mourning is a time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. And we'll begin our service with the recitation of psalms, prayers and readings which link Jerry's life with the millennia-old tradition, the people of Israel, and the eternity of God. So we're going to begin with Psalm 23, which I will sing the first few verses, and then I'll invite everyone to join me in the English translation. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, Binot deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shemo. I'll invite you to join me in the beginning, the front of the second page of the pamphlet. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And I'll now sing the first few verses of Psalm 121 and translate that. Esa einai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Esa einai el heharim, me'ayin yavo ezri. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard your going and coming, now and forever. And I'd now like to invite JoEllen Kerwin to share some words about her mom.
Welcome and thank you for honoring my remarkable, loving, and beautiful mother. Whoops, okay. I feel very cared for at this difficult time, and this would make her very happy. My gratitude extends to my dear family, near and far, both blood and chosen, and my dear friends, they of both me and my mother. B and the boys, Charles, Paul, Mark, and now Lauren and Isla, you know just how to help me see my worth, and your love is deep and true. I don't know what I would do without my amazing niece, Nikki. You are so wise and always know how to lighten the mood in the room. My guys, Jim and Brian, you are the gift that I can't believe I was given. My dearest sister, Laury, despite the miles between us, we are as close as any sisters could be. You're always there for us, and together we shared Mom's last moments. My mother, Bianca Jerry, Mincer Kohlenbrener, how could I have been so blessed to have shared 71 years with you? You have not left me because you lived such a focused, present life that so much of you is still here in my thoughts, heart, and surroundings. Mom responded to beauty in people, art, opera, antiques, interior design, and much more. She had a remarkable eye for creating that beauty in herself and in her home. This extended to her love for good food and new restaurants. And for a time, she worked as a restaurant reviewer for Let Us Entertain You Enterprises. My father enjoyed the payment in gratis of fine dining. My mother's intelligence was on a level where in a more recent generation, she would have rocked any chosen profession or career. However, as a mid-century woman, she channeled her energy and devoted herself to supporting her husband and encouraging her children to achieve to their highest ability. Bianca's favorite conversation starter was always, "What's new?" followed by lots of probing questions, which are hard to avoid answering. She wanted to experience life with us and through us. She shared her pride in us with everyone she knew. Mom had left college after 1 year. She chose U of I over U of C for the social life. I wonder where her life would have taken if she had stayed past the first week at the University of Chicago in Hyde Park. In Champaign, she made lifelong friends, dated a lot, got serious with her greatest love, my father, her Bob. Not being able to afford to stay in school as her father had previously died, Mom returned to Chicago and worked in the crystal department of Marshall Fields and Company. Eventually, she was promoted to HR, or as it was called then, personnel. Jerry supported Bob through his internship and residency in pediatrics, closely followed by his choice to enlist as a flight surgeon in the Air Force. He was stationed in battle zones in Korea. His tour of duty overlapped with my birth, and the first 9 months of my life, Mom had a solo start to motherhood. And then 2 more children, with Laury and Paul, born within 3.5 years of my birth. Her challenges were great, with an ailing mother living miles away, no car, and a very busy husband. My grandmother died when my mother was just 30, and at age 5 years old, I witnessed her profound grief. Jerry's children's school years coincided with the growth of my father's practice, and based on my happy memories, she enjoyed a deep dive into being a mother and wife who designed a life full of enriching and creative experiences for her family. As those years were coming to an end, Jerry went back to college at the brand new Chicago Circle campus at the University of Illinois. She graduated with high honors and a high school teaching degree in the behavioral sciences. Her student teaching at New Trier East High School turned into a faculty position where she designed a behavioral science curriculum which still exists today in an evolved form. After helping to get her children through college, Jerry quit to allow for flexible time to travel with my father. They took fabulous researched itineraries before Google to many worldwide destinations. Their first European trip was all-inclusive, affordable package to Paris with a stay at the Ritz. Bianca in Paris was a perfect match. Of course, no slouching allowed during the rest of the year. Jerry became an accomplished student of the French language and a most requested substitute teacher at Niles North High School, and so much more. With Bianca's joie de vivre, beautiful smile, and interest in others, she continued to make new friends while being the most devoted friend to those she held close, like her dear Nancy Myers, whose loving friendship lasted close to 90 years. Also, her beloved best friend, Vivian Handel, and we lost Vivian this year as well. And we also lost my dear Aunt Joan, who was my father's sister. My mother survived them all, including all her many college friends. But as my mother got the best, but she, as my mother, I got the best of her, and I will cherish her forever. So now I'd like to call Nikki.
I'm actually going to be reading Laury's words for her since she's in Israel and can't be here. Everyone is saying how Mom did it her way. Frank Sinatra was her teen idol, so that makes sense. Mom left us with her characteristic elegance. It was still Shabbat, Yom Kippur, there and shortly after the Hag in Israel. Me and all her Israeli grandchildren had a chance to tell her one last time that we love her, thanks to JoEllen's call. Just after that, she fell into a deep sleep. Then my call back to JoEllen, after Raphael joined me, allowed the 3 of us to be together with Mom at the end. I'm grateful beyond words. It happened so fast. She didn't want to linger. Mom leaving this world on Yom Kippur afternoon was her way of savoring to the limit that last year of life she was granted. JoEllen said that her last words were to ask for a cup of coffee. And her last social engagement was a WhatsApp video tea party with her precious Penelope. We don't know her last thoughts, but I imagine Dad and Paul were in them. It was as if she was still in control, orchestrating her parting scenario. What a remarkable woman. I had the privilege of taking 2 cruises with Mom to the Caribbean and to South America, and our last trip together was a lovely vacation in South Beach, Florida. We both noticed that she was practically the only golden ager to be seen on the streets there. Surprisingly, no elderly citizens were around. I guess they were all tucked away in their senior residences, while Savta was taking public transportation to the sites and strolling with her walker among the shops and restaurants. Her last months were in one of those deluxe senior accommodations, but by then she was ready for it and didn't look back. JoEllen told me her caregivers were concerned that she wanted to be too active. Mom's body was failing, but her spirit was intact. Me and my family are so grateful to those wonderful, devoted caregivers, particularly Gloria and Marina. JoEllen is a superstar, the best sister, aunt, and of course, daughter anyone could have. May she be abundantly blessed for her amazing Kavod honoring thy mother. We couldn't be with Mom or Savta as we would have liked JoEllen, or rather Dodie, was our beloved emissary. My kids had a trip to visit Savta planned for the end of the month, but it wasn't meant to be. At least Mom knew about it and looked forward to it, knowing she was loved and missed. After JoEllen told us that Mom fell into a deep sleep and her breathing was very shallow, Raphael and I wanted to say Tehillim, Psalms, together. I opened the book to see where it landed. We connected to the comforting, appropriate words. I'm sure it was no coincidence. The divinely directed circumstances of Mom's passing were acutely felt throughout. These last months, Mom was still fighting to be in the game, but the recent passing of her sister-in-law, Aunt Joan, and her best friend, Aunt Viv, must have affected her. I pray that Mom is at peace, although I can't help thinking she is shaking things up a little on high, and Dad's been waiting patiently for her sparkle. The Israel bunch of Mom's legacy are together celebrating Mom's long and gracious life. We're thinking of you and missing all of you. May we be united someday soon. Brian.
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for all coming today. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Brian Kerwin, and I was lucky enough to be one of the many grandchildren of Bianca Kohlenbrener, or as she was called by all her grand and great-grandchildren, Savta. I will do my best to not repeat any of the stories shared from my mom, Laury, or Nikki, but if I do, it's only because it was worth saying twice. If you're not aware, my Savta proudly wrote her own obituary about a year ago, where she listed all 12 of her grandchildren and now 22 of her great-grandchildren. We all cherished every moment we had with her, and thankfully there will be more than enough of us to pass down our memories of her. Given not all could be here on short notice, I felt like it would be right again to take a moment and name every grand and great-grandchild, because I know every single one meant the world to her and frankly would not be here without her. I'll only be doing first names, and if I mispronounce anyone's name, you know where to find me after. So first, the grandchildren were the late Baruch, Yonah, Malka, Israel, Danna, Raphael, Avi, Nikki, Katie, Jeremy, Josh, and myself, and the great-grandchildren in alphabetical order, because that's the only way I'm able to keep them all in line. Amaya, Ayala, Brody, Danielle, Dror, Dylan, Geffen, Harel, Eli, Atai, Karam, Neta, Or, Pele, Penelope, Regev, Roni, Ryder, Shai, Ziv, and as of yesterday, Raphael. She truly loved every one of her grand and great-grandchildren equally. I personally believe that every new great-grandchild that was born strengthened Savta and boosted her to the incredible age of 96 years old. I know how strong her love for everyone was when during my catch-up calls with her while I was in college or after I moved downtown, and wasn't able to see her as much as when I lived at home. We would talk about what was going on in my life, and then she would immediately turn to which grandchild was moving where, how another had just started to go to school, or another that just took their first steps. Her care and love for her people was intense and one of a kind. It was often hard to ignore. Over the past couple of years, as I started my job downtown in Chicago, I would look at my phone in the office to see multiple missed calls from Savta and quickly call her back thinking something had come up, only to find out she just wanted to chat at 10:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I would tell her that lunch or after work may have a better odds of me answering the phone, but I still welcomed every call no matter the hour. I would also like to note that my Savta was probably in the top 1% of technology-savvy 96-year-olds and an active Facebook user, although she didn't really understand why I myself did not post on Facebook. And I proceeded to tell her that no one my age ever uses Facebook, which I think made her a bit more confused, so we compromised by sharing photos over text of my daily life. Lastly, I'd be remiss if I did not mention Savta's beauty and sense of style, which I believed had been influenced by her many world travels. She is the only person I've ever seen wear a leopard print fur coat to get Starbucks, and she was always the best dressed at the Northmore buffet dinners. Although she may have declined physically over the past year, she still had her beautiful spirit, which kept her going until the very end. Savta was always the shining light in my life, and I know that light will continue to shine for me and all those who knew her forever and always. Thank you. And
I just have to say that we all have a running joke about who is the favorite, and it was usually Brian. But I don't blame her. He's pretty cool. And I also got 10 missed calls in a row almost every day. And I tried explaining to her that if I didn't answer the first time, I wasn't probably going to answer the next 9 times, and I would call her back, but just never really got there. As I was driving home from the hospital on Sunday, I remembered vividly one of the hardest and equally most comforting moments after my dad passed. It was the day after, and we were sitting in the dining room. I saw Savta walking up the path to my parents' house, and I ran out, hugged her, and started crying. She was the connection that I needed at exactly that moment. I think for me, losing Savta is losing another connection to my dad. For better or worse, I am my dad's daughter, and he was definitely her son. Savta, like my dad, was a force. She loved life and worked hard so that she was able to enjoy the finest things life had to offer. She loved sharing her affinity for the arts, other cultures, and travel with her grandchildren. Some of my favorite childhood memories with her include fancy tea parties at her house, dancing to the jukebox in her basement, picking raspberries from the raspberry bushes in her yard, swimming and the Sunday night buffet at Northmore, and also we would always text each other to see if they got the invite to the Sunday buffet, because that was a big deal, very popular. Special outings to see Broadway musicals in the city, plays at the Marriott, museum visits, and a trip to Washington, D.C. Savta loved to travel the world and had such a great appreciation for other cultures. While there were usually hundreds of pictures to look through after each of her trips, the stories and the scenery were fascinating, and you could feel her passion for the places she went and the people she met. To this day, I don't understand the purpose of scenery pictures, but I didn't mind looking at them when they came with her stories. Of all the places she traveled, France had her heart. She attended weekly French classes for most of her adult life and loved using French words and phrases. French bread, pastries, croissants, and a hot cup of coffee were the keys to her heart. You can imagine her excitement when I chose to take French rather than Spanish in junior high. Through Savta's travels, both here and abroad, she had a passion for antiques. Her house was like a museum. While to some it may have seemed cluttered, to me it was comforting. The special pieces she had collected and the stories that went with them were always in their places in her house every time I'd return. I understand how these special things, these visual memories, gave her comfort because they did the same for me. Savta was tough to please, but when she was happy, she would tell anyone and everyone about the nicest man that helped her, the most wonderful doctor, the most beautiful saleswoman. She was demanding but appreciative, particular but extremely generous. As long as her coffee was extra hot and your service came fast and with a smile, she was your #1 fan. I remember being mortified when my dad would call over the manager at the end of a meal, only to be relieved when he would tell him how wonderful the service and the meal was. This he learned from his mom. Set your expectations high and make sure to recognize and show appreciation when they're met and exceeded. My dad always said, look good, feel good, do good. I know exactly where he got this from. Until the very end, Savta's hair was brown. Her nails were done. They were white. They looked really, I noticed them right when I walked in. Her lips were on, and she smelled like her favorite fine perfume. Like her house, she was frozen in time, and that always brought me comfort. Savta was so incredibly proud of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She would tell anyone who would listen about her grandsons who served in the IDF, her granddaughters in Israel who were just amazing mothers, although she made sure to say she wished they didn't live so far away, and I really don't know how they do it. She was extremely proud of the Jewish families they were creating. Savta never held back her opinion, and she had lots of them. But her opinions were always followed by a compliment. If you listened long enough or changed the subject, she would get to why you were so wonderful. She made sure to start our calls with telling me that I needed to call more often, but that was quickly followed by how proud she was of me. She would say, Nikki, I don't know how you do it, but you do it all. She would always tell me to slow down and take care of myself. And even when she and I both knew it was physically not possible, she would ask how she could help me and what she could do for me. As I got older, I loved our Nordstrom lunches. Just like my dad, she knew exactly what was going on with my friends, as she was very active on Facebook. And I do, my age, we post on Facebook. So she wanted to know about Ashley's latest work trip and if I had made sure to tell her about a restaurant that she must check out. When I was telling one of my friends about her passing, without skipping a beat, she said, of course I'll be there, Savta was my friend. She loved her grandkids unconditionally, and they could do no wrong. She never seemed to notice when they weren't listening or misbehaving, maybe because her hearing wasn't great, or maybe it just didn't matter. She was one of Brody's biggest cheerleaders, and always calling to tell him about a new science exhibit or a new magic book she read about, and to ask him what he was learning in social studies. She lived for Amaya's dance and skating videos and would call right after she watched with a detailed report for Amaya about what she loved about them. Ryder and Shai made her laugh and smile these last few years. She loved just sitting on FaceTime and watching them play and explore. She didn't care if they talked to her. She just enjoyed watching them be happy. While I will continue to be stubborn, not hold back my opinion, be stuck in my ways, and have a somewhat cluttered house, at least I'll have comfort in knowing whom it came from and all the good that comes with it. Savta, I will think of you when I wear animal print, eat a great piece of crusty bread, enjoy the perfect glass of wine, find the perfect item at a vintage store, and watch my kids dance to the jukebox. I hope you're enjoying a fresh cup of coffee in your slippers and robe. Don't forget to give my dad a hug and a hard time.
Really beautiful words of tribute. Nikki, Brian, Laury, who's tuning in on live stream, JoEllen, to Jerry and the amazing life that she lived. I'll now add it's my honor to add a few words in her memory. So Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement in the Jewish tradition, is sometimes called a rehearsal for our death. We typically wear white, like a burial shroud. We abstain from life-giving forces like eating and drinking. We take stock of our lives through various confessional and reflective prayers. And this is all designed for, well, a couple main purposes, but one of them is by rehearsing our death, we are supposed to get more out of life. More meaning, stronger relationships, and prioritization of the people, experiences, and life choices that make us feel most alive. That is why I found it pertinent that Bianca Jerry Kohlenbrener passed away on Yom Kippur. For 96 years, she lived a life of incredible breadth and depth, filled by strong relationships with her family, lifelong connections with her friends, travel around the world, cultural and intellectual pursuits, love and respect from students and colleagues, and more. She lived the kind of life that someone coming out of 25 hours of reflection and introspection would want to dedicate themselves to living. A life that was vibrant, full, and meaningful through to the very end. And that is a very special legacy to leave. Born to Dr. Julian L. and Minnie Mincer in Rochester on August 19, 1928, Jerry was an only child and traveled with her parents as her father's work demanded, until she reached school age and her mother led them to settle down in Chicago. Her early memories were defined by family. Her grandfather picking her up in his Packard with an ice cream cone, hearing about her Aunt Jeanette's European travels and singing tours, giving money and meals to those in need, and her Jewish-German lineage that traced back to Berlin. Jerry's father died when she was 15, and she and her mother struggled for a few years. All of those life experiences would manifest into Jerry's most important parts of her life: her strong relationships with her grandchildren, her curiosity about the world that led her and Bob to travel, her special relationship with her mother, her commitment to tzedakah, to charity, and her keen sense of value that, among other things, as we heard, brought her to Paris on a fantastic deal at the Ritz-Carlton before there were any apps or services or agencies making those things known. In 1946, Bianca, as we heard, decided to go to the University of Illinois, where she spent a year studying and meeting lifelong friends who became like family, like Nancy Myers and Vivian Handler, among others. She returned to Chicago and took up work at Marshall Field's, met and married Bob, and helped put him through medical school along with his parents. We heard from JoEllen about those beginning few years of marriage were difficult in that she, first came JoEllen, and then Laury, and then Paul, while Bob was establishing his career. Jerry had a lot on her plate. And these years of growing pains, when her mother passed away as well, were also part of Jerry's story. She navigated some of life's inevitable challenges with resilience. And after Jerry and Bob moved the family to Skokie, to a house that they would build and she would spend 60 years in, they began to settle into their life a bit more. As Bob's practice grew, Jerry made a number of friends, got to know her kids' friends, modeled on the side, and went back to school to finish her degree in behavioral sciences, which she used as a teacher and curriculum developer at New Trier East. She continued to push herself and live the life that she wanted to live in ways that we heard, learning French, writing restaurant reviews, raising her kids, and traveling around the world. No life is without hardship, and while Jerry thoroughly enjoyed her life, she also dealt with her share of loss. She lost a husband, a son-in-law, a grandson, and friends as she aged. But she nevertheless continued to live life on her terms in the house she and Bob built for close to 20 years after his passing, becoming a Savta and Great-Savta, a name her late grandson Baruch gave to her. And, as Brian mentioned, writing her own death notice about a year and a half ago. A good life includes loss, and the love that informed those losses propelled Jerry to live fully to her very last days, in which she was able to FaceTime with her family, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, here and in Israel, and had a special FaceTime moment with just her daughters, JoEllen and Laury. She even excitedly wished JoEllen a happy anniversary the day before she passed, illustrating her celebratory, loving, caring, and charming nature through to the end. What a gift for you all to share those last moments with her. We rehearse our death on Yom Kippur to orient us toward a life we want to live that's loving and interesting, fulfilling, meaningful, beautiful, and significant. Jerry passed away on Yom Kippur, leaving a blessing by example to all who knew her in her departure. If we live our lives a little more like Jerry, letting people know that we care about them, nourishing our relationships, pursuing that which fills us up, stimulates, and sustains us, then we are all on our way to a life well lived. Zichrona livracha, may Jerry's memory be for a blessing in this way and more. And as we heard all of these ways that Jerry's memory is a blessing, we give thanks to God for having been on this journey in life with her. In the sadness of her death, we can find comfort in knowing that her soul is bound up in life eternal, and her memory will forever be a blessing. At this time, we offer words of our tradition as we pray that God protects and keeps Jerry's soul for eternity. At this point, I'll invite, if you are able to do so, I invite you to stand by your seats. El male rachamim, shochen bamromim, hamtze menucha nechona, tachat kanfei hashchina, im kedoshim utahorim, kizohar harakia, mazhirim, et nishmat, Bela bat Malka v'Yehuda shahalcha le'olama. Ba'al harachamim yastireha b'seter knafav le'olamim. V'yitzror bitzror hachayim et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar. Amen. I'll invite you to read along with me the English translation of El Male Rachamim. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Bianca Jerry Kohlenbrener, who has gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace. Amen. I'll invite you to remain standing.